Hi, Alena. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So we both grew up in Sarawak, Kuching, but I get the sense that your childhood was very, very different from mine. And I would love for you to share what your childhood was like from your memory growing up there.
I love Kuching. And it still is, I think, a great place to grow up. For me, so a bit about my background. My father is Kelabit, which is one of the tribes in Sarawak. And my mother, she's half English, half Italian. And she's an anthropologist and an English teacher. So they both met in Sarawak. And I think with both their backgrounds, it gave my brother and I a really, really rich experience. And I think only, as I was older, I realized that, hey, like not every kid had a similar experience as I did. So for example, like at the weekends, we would go to the beach, we would go hiking, we would go to villages. My mom was doing research as well on old rituals, on basket weaving. She was doing research on natural dyes. So we would spend weekends kind of delving into her research. And I remember as a teenager, I got a bit frustrated because I wanted to just go to the cinema with my friends or go to McDonald's with my friends. But no, I had to go for a hike, for example. But now I love the jungle.
Yeah, it was so funny when I was doing research and I read that you were going for hikes. I think you stayed in one of the longhouses to look for wild orangutans, and it's so different from my own experience. So I wondered, like, was your mom like actively encouraging you guys to do this, or did you feel as though you wanted to rebel greatly, or was it you just went with the flow because it was very interesting?
As kids, we loved it. I mean, that was the life that we knew, right? Going to look for wild orangutans was in Batang Air, but not in the resort area. We stayed with the kampong people.
Yeah.
And back then as well, I remember my mom, she had a job to train the tour guides how to speak English and how to host tourists. So we would like follow her along on those trips. No, I think it was as a teenager, I just wanted to rebel a bit and hang with my friends at the weekend at the one or two malls that we had in Kuching.
Very few.
Yeah.
And one A&W, that was it. So were you very much like in touch with the Kelabit side? I think some of them were living in longhouses as well, right? Still are as well.
Yeah, so our people actually come from Miri. So if you can picture Brunei on a map, it's south of Brunei, right at the Malaysian-Indonesian border. That's the Kelabit Highlands. But my dad moved to Kuching, which is about an hour's flight from Miri. But we had a lot of aunties and uncles and cousins that also lived in Kuching. So at the weekends, I think since I was 6 years old, my mom and the other aunties would send my cousins and I to dance class with one of the other aunties. So we would just spend the afternoon learning to dance together. It all sounds very romantic, but actually, like now when I talk to the cousins that I was learning dance with, we're all like, oh, I dreaded dance classes actually. Yeah. I just did it. Yeah, I just did it so I could hang out with my cousins. Oh. But I mean, now we all know how to dance, so that's a plus, and we really appreciate that now. But at the time, it was like, oh, I just want to run around with my cousins.
That's so funny. But then you still continue to like you guys love hanging out with each other because later on you learned the sape together as well. Like part of you were doing dance and part sape. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I learned to dance when I was 6. And there was a bunch of us cousins, I think maybe around 15 to 20 cousins that learned how to dance of different ages. And at one point, so when I was 11, I don't remember exactly when or how the conversation came about, but it was basically half of us decided that we wanted to play sape and the other half would dance. So then by playing sape, we could, change up the rhythm. We could be more creative with our choreography. And at that time, there was only one CD album from Tusau Padan that we would dance to. So at the time, it was a very kind of naive reason to play the sape. We didn't realize, that, like, oh, actually there's hardly anyone in our dad's generation that's playing. We didn't do it to like save the sape or anything. We just wanted to learn music.
But why the sape? I think you were also learning like the guitar and the saxophone, right? So did you not think of bringing different instruments to provide that kind of background for your dance?
Oh, no, we never thought about that actually. Yeah, we never thought about that. Yeah, I learned the guitar before I picked up the sape, and I guess having that background in guitar really helped me pick up the sape a bit faster.
Was it difficult to convince your teacher, I think it was like Matthew now, to teach you? Because sape is something that was only introduced to females in your father's generation, right? So it's quite new.
Yes. Uncle Matthew, he's Kenyah, which is one of the other tribes that is very close to ours. He married a lady just outside of Kuching. So he lived about 30 minutes outside of the city. And yeah, we approached him and said, Uncle, will you teach us the sape? And only, I think, maybe 6 years ago, when I was playing a show with him and an interviewer came to ask us questions, she asked a similar question to him, and he said that, after these young girls had approached him and asked if he would teach us a sape, apparently he went home and thought very hard about it, because at that time, well, not at that time, but in previous times, so in the pre-Christian times, it was taboo for women to even touch the sape. And I think since the tribes and the communities became Christian, nobody really kind of questioned that taboo anymore. And it just so happened that girls didn't quite play the sape. So yeah, so he went back and asked himself if he should do that, and what would the people say? What would the community say? And he said to himself that nobody in that generation is playing, so he wants to teach us. So we were his first batch of students at that time. It was the year 2000.
So maybe you could explain a little bit about the background of sape, which I found very fascinating as I was preparing for this, because there are two types of sape as I understand, right? The spirit sape and the human sape. So what you're playing is the human one. Can you explain?
Yes. So there are two sapes. Maybe I should explain what sape is. So sape is a lute instrument from Borneo, so from Malaysian Borneo and also Indonesian Borneo, and it's played by the Orang Ulu people. And these are people that live really in the heart of Borneo, right in the middle, in the rainforest, in the headwaters of rivers. And the sape, it's a stringed instrument made out of one piece of wood, and the back is hollow. And this instrument used to be used in ritual healing. So there are two sapes. The first one is sape Bali. Bali means spirit, so the spirit sape, and the other one is the human sape. And right in the past, there was only the sape Bali, and it was used for ritual healing. And the legend goes that there was once there was once a healer whose wife got very, very sick, and he couldn't heal her. So one day he fell asleep and he had a dream, and in this dream, a woman told him to make this instrument. And once he's made that instrument and stringed it to play certain tunes, and his wife would be healed. So that's what he did when he woke up, and his wife was healed. So ever since then, the sape was used for ritual healing, to heal physical ailments and emotional ailments and spiritual ailments. And then in the 1930s, Christianity started to come into our areas, and the tribes, most of them became evangelical Christian, some of them Catholic, and therefore the pre-Christian rituals were no longer relevant. And that included the sape Bali. And at that time, the human sape was used more for entertaining, so for dancing, playing folk songs. But I'm not sure why the human sape was also kind of died down in that period as well. Yeah, so it's got a really interesting history to it. Now the sape is quite different from what it was before
So back
in
then,
terms of like, sorry.
so like back then,
Yeah.
the spirit sape and the human sape, what was it that was actually different physically?
Um, so there's not much that we know exactly about the spirit sape because the elders don't want to talk about it anymore.
Oh, you haven't
But
even
from
seen one
what I have seen one. It's different shape from the human sape or what we played today. It's a little bit more curved, like a vase shape, and a smaller, longer neck. And it has two frets carved out of the neck. So that means that you would have like three notes.
very
And
limited.
yeah, and it had two strings. Whereas the sape, the other sape or the sape that we have today would have 3 or 4 strings. It would be pentatonic, so at least 5 notes. Yeah.
Oh, so that's so interesting. You said the elders don't want to talk about back then the spirit sape. So the taboo is
Yeah,
still there.
the taboo's still there. I mean, I think, excuse me, I think, I think from the past, I mean, we still have elders that lived through the pre-Christian times, and from what I understand, it was a very difficult time because, you know, there was there was spirits of the jungle and all kinds of spirits and all kinds of omens. Like if they saw a certain bird flying a certain way across the path, all activity had to be stopped, or um, there's other things I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to mention here.
Oh,
I
wow.
can tell you off air.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think, you know, they don't want to, they just don't want to live those memories anymore. And they don't want us to go and explore those memories anymore. There are a few things in journals that we can read. So I do a lot of reading of academic journals also.
That's so interesting. Why would they not want it to be shared? Though? Is it because it's very sacred?
You mean the
Like the
Christian
rituals? Yeah.
rituals? I mean, I think, I think for them, it's just for the very fact that it's against their current belief system. So it's not something that they want to bring to life anymore.
So let's go back to the sape. So you picked it up and you learned from Uncle Matthew. And what do you remember what your first lessons was like?
I don't remember my first lesson, you know, but we would always have the lessons at one of the cousins' houses, and they were informal lessons. Um, you know, they were organized in the sense like we had them every Saturday afternoon for such and such a fee, but they could run on for 2 hours, 3 hours. We were, you know, all of different abilities in the class, and obviously we were his first students as well. So I think he still passed on the songs and the traditions to us via oral traditions. So we didn't have any writing. I remember back then also, he had this like massive tape recorder. So he would record himself playing sape and make a tape for each of us to then
That's so
go home
nice.
and practice. Yeah.
That's really, really sweet.
It is really sweet. I think I found one of his tapes the other day, and I was telling this to my first batch of students in about 6 years ago, and they said, "Teacher, you do the same to us, but it's just on WhatsApp." I was like, "Oh yeah."
It's a lot less laborious. That's so
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, because like as a musician, it boggles my mind that when you are learning an instrument, you don't have the actual notes and you're reading the notes. So that's something that was never a part of the sape learning, right?
No, never. And you know, now also I do play with orchestras or I don't know, modern contemporary bands, and I always say I don't read notes, which is not true because I do read notes, right? I play guitar, I play saxophone, I did the exams and everything. But when it comes to sape, I cannot brain like putting the notes to the way I play sape. So I just say, you know, send it to me, I'll listen and I'll play.
That's so interesting though. I love it.
Yeah.
So, like, did you find it very hard to master the sape, given that you had a guitar background? Because the technique is quite different, right? I think you do the flicking, so it's a very different style.
The technique is very different. Um, so I found it, I think I picked up quite fast. My cousin Emma and we picked up faster than the others. Emma also played guitar. But I think it's more like you understand how a string instrument works. Like, for example, you play violin. So you'd understand tuning, you'd
Yeah.
understand, are you fretting in a way? Like where
It's
to
not,
place your
yeah,
fingers, yeah.
it's like very precise.
Uh,
It has to be at that position, at that angle, that
yeah,
pressure.
yeah. Yeah, so that really helped. I mean, now I teach students with zero music background, and I also have students that play guitar and they come and learn sape. And in some ways, I feel like those with zero music background actually pick up the sape techniques better.
Oh, that's really interesting. Oh.
Yeah.
So after that, like, did you have any thoughts in terms of what you were going to do with your life? Or was the sape just something that you were doing because your cousins were doing it as well?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, we couldn't say we wanted to be a professional sape player. Like, it wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Uncle Matthew did it, but we also saw him like, yeah, that's Uncle Matthew.
The exception.
There was no woman that did it. There was no young person that did it. So yeah, I never ever thought about it. I did have like did you go to Rainforest Festival as a kid? So I would always just like look at the musicians on stage and in the workshops and be so in awe of them. And I remember telling my mom like, oh, I want to be them. So my mom actually took me to go and talk to some of the musicians.
Oh,
She took me to go and talk to some of the musicians. And she said, Lena, ask them about their lives, what they do. She said, you'll see that they're not all full-time musicians, which is true. Like, I remember some of them were like pharmacists, that worked in an office, teachers, and da-da-da-da. And I was like, oh, okay. But I really didn't put much thought to it. I just thought it would be something that would be so awesome. Yeah, I wanted to be a vet. I wanted to be interior designer. I wanted to be in advertising. I wanted to be a TV host, like anything except for a professional sape player.
yeah, it's just not something you think about. Yeah, and so, like, how did you transition from all that to deciding to go to Manchester to study business management? What was the thought process there?
So after SPM, I went to the UK for A-levels. And I really wanted to study art, right? Painting. I loved painting, but I wasn't very good at it. I just had the art classes at school. But because I arrived one term late in the UK, because they start in September and I arrived in January, so I couldn't catch up on a portfolio for art. So I never did art. Anyway, I did economics, math, and something else. Forgot now. And then it came to applying to university, and I still felt, oh, I want to do art. I really love painting. And I just wasn't good enough to apply to the art schools in England, like the good art schools. My dad was like, you're not applying to a school that requires 3 E's, Elena. You're not doing that. And I was like, okay, that's fair. So then I was like, oh, what's like art? Advertising, I thought at the time, but also the advertising courses were like for lower grades. So then the advertising turned into marketing. So that's how I went to Manchester. I did marketing and management. First year of university, studied marketing, and I just didn't really roll with the ethics of marketing, right? Like the tricks of how to sell people things. It's just not my character. So I dropped marketing and just, I'll just do the full-blown management course. So it's just a general management course. Yeah, I was able to choose some interesting subjects, and then subjects that relate to home. Like I remember I really enjoyed bridging the digital divide. So looking at rural areas and how to gain connectivity. And I wrote my thesis on exploring the social responsibility of logging firms in Borneo. So that was really
wow.
interesting.
So you could
Yeah,
delve
it gave me a really great perspective.
so you could delve into your local identity in the UK.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's really interesting. And it's like, was identity something that you struggled with? Because I mean, for me, when I was growing up, I rarely saw anyone who was of an Indigenous background, but you had Eurasian blood, but also were Indigenous. So was that something you struggled with?
Double minority.
Yeah.
It was something that I struggled with. I mean, you know, I think because I was so rooted in my Kelabit heritage through music and through art, but at the same time I would be treated differently, like I wasn't from Malaysia, right? Like, you know, still until today, people are so shocked that I'm Malaysian. Like, people in Malaysia are shocked that I'm Malaysian. They're like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, oh, I'm Malaysian. Are you sure? Are you sure? You know, and people are so shocked that I speak Bahasa. So yeah, I still get that. So actually, I was really looking forward to leaving Kuching. I mean, number one, I think a lot of us were looking forward to leaving Kuching because
I lived for it. Yeah, the SPM's over. Yes.
Move out. Yeah, but also I was looking forward to going to England because that's where that's where part of my heritage is from. And I was like, maybe finally I can fit in over there. But no, people in England thought I was Asian. I mean, I am. But, you know, they would call me Asian and wouldn't see me as British, whereas people in Malaysia wouldn't see me as Malaysian. So, yeah, it was quite hard, like my late teens and early 20s. But I think at the end of the day, I just found that I resonated with Malaysia or Sarawak most. And
so was that the reason why you decided to come back to Malaysia after you finished studies in the UK?
Partially. So I got offered a job after university in KL.
Yeah.
So I moved to KL for that job. And that was the first time I lived in KL. And I think you might resonate with me in that KL is another culture shock because it's completely different. I mean, not completely, but
yeah, I think
there are a lot of differences.
Totally different. I think what made it harder for me is opposed to when I moved to London, it was so easy coming to KL because people see me as Malaysian. They expect you to treat everything as normal, but it wasn't normal for me. I didn't know anything.
It's like people see you as Malaysian, but you don't feel like you fit into the city because it's a totally different culture.
They're like, let's go to Mama. What is a Mama?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have a Mama? No, we don't. And to this day, I still have people who don't believe that there's no Mama in Kuching.
Yeah. Yeah. I moved to KL, and that was another culture shock. And
I think you were doing something in environmental sustainability as well at the time, were you?
So I moved for a job in sustainability consulting. And yeah, I learned a lot there. I also got put on other jobs like HR consulting or CSR consulting, which, yeah, I learned a lot from, but I just realized it wasn't really me.
So after 2 years, how did you decide to move to Singapore and pursue an art degree at Lasalle?
Oh gosh, that was such a hard decision to make.
Yeah. And your parents.
You know, I don't think I've ever said this like in an interview before, but I remember my parents came over to KL and we went to Kinokuniya, and because my family loved books. And we were in there for a long time, like an hour. And I went missing. I was upstairs, you know, above the cashier. Upstairs is where all the art books are. So my mom and my brother came up and they found me and they're like, Alena, we're ready to go. And I was carrying like this stack of art books, like in my hand like this. And I looked at them. I just started crying. And my mom's like, why are you crying? And I remember saying, I just love art so much. That was one of the moments. But it wasn't, I didn't leave my job then. I think it was like maybe 7 to 8 months later. Yeah, I had surgery on my foot, actually,
Oh no.
on right on the underneath of my foot.
Oh no.
And I was at home for a month. So I got some like paints and I got canvas and I just started painting again. And honestly, like I wasn't a great painter. I just really enjoyed it. And it came to a point where I was like, oh, I really want to paint this person's portrait, or I really want to paint, something else, but I can't. Like I have it in my head, but I can't technically do it. And I just knew I wanted to learn. So yeah, it was after many months, and I thought about it, and I thought, if I leave my job now, do a 1-year course, if it doesn't go well, I can, go back into the workforce again. Like I'm still young, I didn't have any dependents, luckily, and yeah, so I did that.
And what was the experience like doing art?
It was great. I did a foundation course, so my classmates, my course mates were fresh out of high school, so 17, 16 years old, and I think I was about 23 at the time. And
quite different.
I really got along.
Oh.
Yeah, I really got along well with them, and we'd have like great conversations. And what I loved about the course at Lasalle is that, we did learn like technical drawing and stuff like that, but I learned more soft skills like observation, reasoning, critical thinking, observing society. I learned all of those great things that I didn't learn at business school.
And did you feel like, okay, this is it, I want to be a fine artist?
I guess not quite. I knew I wanted to paint. I still do. I love painting. Painting is really my first love. But I saw that it would be really, really difficult. Even just getting into the mind of an artist is so difficult. It's so not difficult, but it's a big journey. It's a big journey to go on. And I think, if you ask me if it's something that I dreamt of, but it was a scary dream.
And were your teachers like encouraging you to go into this art field or telling you something else?
They weren't. I was so shocked. Yeah, because it was a foundation course. So after foundation, you usually go into degree, diploma, or I could have gone into a master's, for example. So I was really kind of stuck, like, what is my next move? And I remember two of my lecturers who I was very close with, they said, they actually looked at my work. They look at your journals, they look at your drawings and your lines and everything. And they said, Alena, if you look at all your work, like it points back to your roots, your heritage, Sarawak, your elders. And I was like, yeah, so that's who I am. And they're like, yeah, but we've never seen it so like strong at someone in foundation course. And actually they said to me, fine artists, as an artist, you have to be a very selfish person, but you are not selfish. You're doing everything for your community. Even when you like journal about it, it's for your community. And I was like, huh? I really didn't understand. And they said, why don't you just do your thing? And in a year, we'll see what you want to do. And I was like, and I'd already done a degree and these courses are not cheap. So I was like, yeah, okay, I don't want to just jump into anything that I'm not completely sure of. Yeah, so I moved back to KL, not quite knowing what to do.
And so what was next once you came back to KL?
Two of my ex-colleagues at the consulting firm, they actually were in a world music band. I'd met them at Rainforest Festival years ago, and then we somehow ended up in the same office by coincidence. Yeah, so they were in a world music band.
It's called Diplomats of Drum, right?
Yeah, Diplomats of Drum. And they invited me on their US tour that year, like 3-4 months later. Yeah. Well, and at that time, actually, I didn't play Sape. My close friends in KL didn't really know that I played Sape. It was at home. I just never thought about playing it in KL, I guess. But they knew because, they'd seen me at the festival. So I said yes. I practiced really hard. Yeah, and we went to the US at the end of 2014 for 4 weeks, and that was really, really fun. And at the same time, I had my dad asking me, "What's next? What's your plan?" Da, 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 da. And I was like, I don't know what my plan is, but just give me a while because I feel like I can feel this is the right thing. Like I feel so full and I feel so happy, and I just feel like this potential.
Yeah, you never know. You never know where it will go.
I had no idea. I didn't even expect to play the sape.
Yeah.
And I think that US trip really kind of opened my eyes to how interested people are of the sape, of these stories that we have. Many people have seen, an instrument from India or a stringed instrument from Africa, for example, but they've never seen the sape, and some people never heard of Borneo, never even heard of Malaysia, some of them. So
and you were singing your local songs as well, right? So it's like a different language for them too.
Back then in 2014, I didn't sing.
Oh, it was just
Yeah. Singing is quite a recent thing. Maybe 2016 I started singing.
Right. So was there any particular incident that happened on that tour that stood out for you?
So many. So many. It's so in our set in Diplomats of Drum, as you can imagine by the band name, Diplomats of Drum, it's quite an upbeat band, right? And the song that I contribute the most to, the song that I contribute is Datun Julut. It's one of our folk songs, and it's with the band and kind of like the bass guitar and the drums. It becomes quite an emotional song, very kind of like a bit warlike, like very semangat. And yeah, it was, almost after every other show, someone from the audience would come and say how touched they were by that song, some of them in tears. And I was like, wow, this music is really powerful. So yeah, I think I just started seeing how touched people were and how much it impacted people, how much it impacted me as well. And I just kind of kept very slowly going. And gradually I started getting bigger gigs in Malaysia. Yeah, I've been doing this full time since 2016.
Wow. So after you came back from the tour, were you like trying to get all these gigs and at the same time you were joining TFM just to be able to have an income? Like, was that the thought process?
Not even. So I got back from the tour. I remember I had a quite big painting project, and I didn't push the sape at all. Like, I posted some pictures on Facebook and Instagram, but I had like 300 followers or something at the time. And I joined TFM because, well, yeah, I did need a job. TFM is Teach for Malaysia. Okay, yeah, so I did need a job, and I still very much have a heart for education, because Teach for Malaysia, what they do is I forgot what our one-liner is because it's going to be quite complicated. Let's just say, at Teach for Malaysia, they reduce education inequity. So providing access for all students in Malaysia to have a good quality education, right? And I always think that, if my father and his generation didn't go to school and have the opportunities of education, I wouldn't be where I am today. And a lot of my family still, do not have access to education. So it's something that's still very, very close to my heart. And I had management skills. So I joined Teach for Malaysia. I was supporting on strategy and really enjoyed it.
Amazing. And in the meanwhile, I think you also did this project with BJ Initiative in Genting.
Yes. Which one was that? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we had a big, we had a painting project. That's the painting project that I mentioned earlier. And yeah, that was a lot of fun too. So I was doing I was working for Teach for Malaysia in the week. And then, even in the evenings or at the weekends in my free time, I'd be painting. I had some commissions as well. I used to really, really, really enjoy the open mic scene in KL. It was a really supportive community. There'd be open mics like almost every night of the week.
So you just go and play there?
I would, but I would play guitar.
Oh.
Yeah, I play guitar and start singing a little bit, like singer-songwriter stuff. And I remember like once in a while, I'd bring my sape and I'd end it on the sape. I'd play 3 songs on the guitar and I'd be like, oh, by the way, this is a sape, and start playing. And yeah, I think it was from there that people started to listen to sape more. And I think at that time in Malaysia, with this whole like confusing One Malaysia campaign, people weren't really sure of like, hey, what is Sabah and Sarawak? Actually, we don't really know much about them. So people were craving for these stories from East Malaysia. So yeah, the sape gave them an opportunity to listen to some of those stories.
And around the same time, you also founded a social enterprise, ART4 Studio, now known as Kanid Studio. So how did that come about? What was the inspiration?
Okay, well, to be honest, I was given the name social enterprise. I was just doing my thing. Okay.
So I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, there was a social enterprise wave at that time as well in Malaysia. So ART4 Studio, I named it ART4 just to always remind myself to use art for a positive cause. So it started with some disaster relief, so like selling paintings or doing commissions to fund like broken bridges or
I think that's at your kampong, right? You did a Facebook plea for it because the bridges collapsed.
Yeah, and even to this day, it's just the one bridge we rebuilt that is rebuilt. The other bridges still haven't been rebuilt, unfortunately. Supporting mostly Penang kids through education. And yeah, ART4 Studio has kind of evolved across the years, and this year we renamed it to Kanid Studio, focusing more on production, on art and music projects, basically anything that tells stories about heritage, anything that works towards making cultural heritage relevant. It's kind of very bespoke and ad hoc projects. But we still do kind of ad hoc supporting kids through education, disaster relief, and those kind of things.
Was it very hard for you to launch it, especially and run it, especially in the early days?
Not really, because I didn't put much pressure on it. It was something that was there, and again, it's grown very organically. Even with my journey as a sape player has grown so organically as well. So it's not something that I kind of put pressure on, had targets for. I think for what I do as a musician or as an artist or I don't know, whatever I am, the challenging thing is that I don't really have a model to follow. I don't have exactly somebody who's done the same thing that I can say, oh, these are the steps I need to take. So, the way I make choices and decisions, I talk a lot with my family, my cousins, my uncles, my aunties, and say, is this what we want for our community? How should we do it? How should we put things? Is this, what's the next project we should do? Stuff like that. It's very organic.
Yeah. And it was very brave as well, because within 1 year, you decided to enter into music full-time in 2016. So was there a tipping point where you decided, I'm ready to enter into music and give it a go?
It was just that I was getting a lot of gigs, and at the same time, my Teach for Malaysia contract was coming to an end, so it would either be renewed or finished. And yeah, I was getting enough shows and enough gigs, and I had students at that time also. So financially, I felt like I could sustain myself. So yeah, here I
And
am today.
how was the conversation with your family when you told them that this is what I want to do?
I think my parents, they've always been supportive, right? Because they were the ones that sent me for lessons in the first place.
You asked for it.
Back in the day. Yeah. They have to be supportive. But I think, again, it's because, it's not just the thing of like, oh, how do you make a living out of art and music? But it's also the thing of like, how do you make a living out of playing Sape?
Yeah.
So they were always supportive, but I think nervous and worried for me. I think really probably only up until last year or 2 years ago, maybe up until last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think it's also that, I've lived away from them for so long that they don't see the everyday things that I do. They don't see, and as well in, KL is so different from Kuching, and, they don't see the media industry, they don't see the entertainment industry here. So I think they were very nervous and very worried.
So what was the plan? Do you have one? Because you released your EP in the same year as well. So was that something that you knew you were going to do?
No. When I say this is a very organic journey, it's very organic, right? So my cousin Josh, who, okay, so back in 2006, I think. No, 2006, we had a cousin band called Kanid that played at Rainforest Music Festival. So that's when I met my cousin Josh. He came in from KL to be the drummer, right? And after that, Josh went off to Berkeley to study music. So around 2016, he came back to KL. We met up, and I remember having drinks with him, and he said, I want to produce you. And I was like, what does that mean? He broke it down for me, and I was like, oh, maybe, I'm not sure. But he would when we would meet up, he would ask me, or he would tell me, I guess, I want to produce you. So eventually I was like, okay, Josh, we're doing, like, how much money do we need? Like, what do I need to do? What songs do I need? All this kind of stuff. And then, yeah, I just muddled along with it. And then I had an album.
So do you mind sharing like the thought process, what you just said, how much you need? Like, how do you come up with an EP? What was that like?
How did you come up with an EP? Yeah, well, I guess, I've been playing the songs that I've been playing that were put inside the EP. I've known them since 2000, so I've known them for 16 years. So it's not like I didn't have songs, right? So yeah, we just mapped out the songs, and I kind of really just trusted him and his vision to develop those songs, really. I remember though there was in the song Liling, he did do a demo with the drum kit in, and I was like, nah. Like I want this to be more traditional, more like a, something that can become a reference. He was like, oh, okay. Yeah, and then we went into the studio and released it. I did an EP launch at Timber, this live venue, and it was so full. I didn't realize how full it would be.
Wow. Were you not involved in the marketing?
I was hands-on with everything. But I guess sometimes you you send out invites and people don't really RSVP, and yeah, I was really overwhelmed.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what happened after that? I think, like,
what happened after that?
Were you going off on all these world festivals?
Yeah, so I remember that time I had two friends who were doing life coaching. They're older than me and wiser than me. So I did life coaching both of them. One of them's more focused on kind of like my emotional well-being, and the other life coach is more focused on like business and kind of goal settings. And I remember, so with a life coach, right, they kind of sit you down and ask you hard questions that only you can answer, and they give you the tools to answer it, but again, only you can answer, and they ask very specific questions if you cannot answer. So I remember one of my answers to their questions was I want to travel and I want to play music. And she said, write that down. So I wrote it down. I have a paper somewhere. And yeah, ever since then, I have been traveling overseas to like big festivals, small festivals. I was actually very thankful for MCO because I was getting very tired of traveling. Not tired of traveling, actually, I was getting very tired, very exhausted in general. But sometimes I look back and I'm like, wow, like, I don't know what it is, like thoughts or desire or intention is a very powerful thing. I mean, honestly, I cannot bring like being this kid at Rainforest Festival, just wishing I could be this musician on stage, but never really like, I didn't sing, you know, I didn't play anything professionally. I didn't go to music school. And, you know, suddenly like I can be playing at festivals in random places across the world. Really, I think I've been reflecting on that a lot this year and just thinking like, wow, how did all that happen?
Were you ever plagued with like imposter syndrome, asking yourself, why me, why here?
No. I know what you mean. I think I was always very certain that this is my path. Not to say my path is to be a professional sape player traveling the world and all this stuff, but my path is to be somebody that carries our heritage, you know, right now, or maybe, you know, in the last 5 years. The way of doing it was to play music and to play at these festivals overseas. I don't know if the next 5 years is, you know, it will be in a different way. I don't know. But I think I just have to stay very clear-headed to be sure of what I'm doing.
When were you certain of that path? Like, was there a moment where you went, I am doing what I'm meant to be doing?
No, I don't remember the exact moment, but I get that moment quite often when I'm on stage at a festival. Yeah, I think, you know, I play on all kinds of stages, right? So I don't really get that feeling when I'm on a corporate stage. I get that feeling more when I'm, you know, on a stage where I can be completely who I want to be, when I can direct the show as much as I want to direct. So if it's my own production, or, you know, at a festival, or I've even had those moments playing in front of like 30 people in a community hall, for example. I think it's when I see how people react to the music, how people react to the stories. That's when I know that's what I should be doing.
Yeah. Because sape is something that's more conducive in an intimate surrounding, right, as opposed to like a giant stadium.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular like productions or moments when you perform where you really felt like you loved it so much?
Oh, let me think. There's quite a lot. I think one of the best moments was actually bringing the show home to Kuching last year. So my team and I put on a show called Spirit last October in Kuching, in conjunction with What About Kuching Festival. And I just felt like I had been traveling so much, but never really played in Sarawak. And if I played in Sarawak, it was usually for a private event. And it's always nerve-wracking going home. I don't know why. It's as in playing at home or playing in front of Sarawakians is nerve-wracking. I was so nervous and excited. And again, I think tickets sold out on the day itself. And it was just so overwhelming seeing like all these people in Kuching come out for the show. It was a 1.5 hour show. I was debuting my band as well and some of like our new songs. And yeah, I just felt like home.
And I think people who want to hear that can go to your YouTube channel because the performance is there as well. So I noticed as well that you went to so many different festivals, like the Norway's Fjord Festival, which is the largest Scandinavian traditional music festival. And you also were at like the Paris Fashion Week. So like how did all these like really different opportunities come out?
So Paris Fashion Week was actually with Stylo. Stylo is a Malaysian-based fashion agency or fashion. Anyway, it was with a group of Malaysians in the fashion industry that were debuting in Paris. So one of the brands invited me to play for their catwalk live, and it was really nice. It was on a boat.
Oh wow!
On the river, and the background was the sparkling Eiffel Tower.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was really nice. It was really nice. And then I organized some radio shows. So I played Sape on radio in Paris, and after that we went to Rotterdam and had a show there. And then flew home. That's nice. That was one of my earlier trips actually, 2016 or 2017. And then, the Fjord Festival in Norway. That's actually a very big festival in my industry. So my genre of music is called world music, and it has a very, very different industry as compared to rock music, pop music, classical music. So the world music industry or the network is actually quite small, and we have like specific types of marketing, specific types of managers, agents, festivals, labels. So Fjord Festival is like one at the top of the list. So it was really, really great to be there. It's like in this small village in Norway, in the fjords.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was actually quite a moment as well. Not necessarily being on the stage at that festival, but we were also shooting a documentary at the same time, and I sat by the river and played sape, and I just felt like, I don't even know how to describe the feeling. I felt like I had come one big circle, sitting there by a river. I mean, usually I would be playing by another river in Borneo, and now I'm by the river in the fjords in Norway. Yeah.
Glacier water
Again, it was,
going by.
yeah, it was like, what am I doing here?
Do you feel like you had to be overseas in order to promote your own culture music? Because I feel, at least from what I can observe, that world music, at least in this part of the world, isn't as maybe appreciated as maybe overseas. Do you feel?
There's a very weak world music industry in Sarawak. Not Sarawak. There's a very weak world music industry in Southeast Asia. So again, as I mentioned, for world music, you need very specific managers, agents, labels, and I haven't been able to find one that suits me. And actually, when I was starting out on kind of being a professional sape player, a very prominent lady in the arts in KL told me, get out of Malaysia. Yeah, I was so shocked. But she just said, get out of Malaysia, make your music sexy outside of Malaysia. Only then Malaysians will listen.
It's true.
Yeah.
You didn't resonate with that?
Unfortunately, that's true. I didn't really understand what she was saying. I was like, I can understand that, but I'm not sure if I believe it. That's not the reason why I went overseas. I mean, the reason why I want to play overseas is to expand the reach of our music and our stories. But I think having that overseas experience did kind of I guess, draw attention to me back home as well. Yeah.
So did you not feel the urge to stay overseas?
Sometimes I think that if I was based in Amsterdam or Berlin or London, those are the world music hubs, I could grow a lot faster.
Yeah.
But then I think about it as well, like, I've lived away from home for so long and lived in like different countries, and I always end up missing home. And, my music and my stories are so closely rooted to home, right? To Sarawak, that I think it would just be too hard for me to be away.
Yeah. I think what's really magical about your music videos as well is that you really involve your family in it. Like they would be singing in it or dancing in it. So that's really special that you would go to them and make them a part of your music.
It is. It is really special. I mean, yeah, I think so. We released Midang Midang last year.
I love that
and
song.
Thank you. And yeah, I worked very closely with my cousin Sarah. She directed the music video, and she styled it, she choreographed it. And for that music video in particular, we wanted to make sure that every film department was led by Orang Ulu youth. So even like hair and makeup was by Gabriel Padan. He's Orang Ulu as well, and then the dancers, and but as well, like, we love working with people who are not family and not Sarawakians. I always say, I don't want to seem like I'm so exclusive. I really don't. But I find that, my cousins have the same lived experience as me. They have the same they had the same challenges of we are the first generation to be born outside of the rainforest. So we have parents that, were born in the rainforest and lived their life in the rainforest and like walked 10 days in the rainforest to get to school. And, so growing up, we hear their stories and we have kind of like the same community values that they have. But at the same time, like, we're city kids. So like, working with my cousins, we kind of understand the viewpoints, we have the same lived experiences, and we're on the same page in terms of what we want to share and what we want to talk about. And the synergy is just is amazing, and it's so easy.
Is it a challenge to get the elderly part of your like family, like your tapu, to get involved in it? Because it must be something that is so bizarre, at least at the start, right?
I love our elders so much. I went through a phase of painting elders because I just loved.
Gorgeous.
Have you seen them?
Yeah, I have.
I mean, I love just, their faces have so many lines and so much texture. Like in that way, I love painting them, but also I just love like meditating on their story. And they've seen so much transition in their lives. Like they've lived through, like pre-Christian times. They've lived through, having roads enter the village. They've seen like the missionaries come. They've seen schools enter. They've seen money enter. Oh gosh, they've seen electricity enter and phones. Like they've lived through so much transition and change. I'm always so in awe of them. So I think when like you have these like city kids coming back to the kampong, they used to it like it's nothing big. It's no big deal to them, but I think they find us a little bit amusing. Like we shot Midang Midang music video in Barrio, right, in the village, and half of the boys, the grandmothers, they didn't know who I was because I was wearing so much makeup, right?
Oh.
Yeah, they didn't recognize me until I spoke to them, and I was like, "Do you know who I am?" They're like, "Why are your eyes so red? Why are you sitting in a pond?"
Oh, that's really sweet. And what was it like being a part of Small Island Big Song? Because I think you brought the production team to your village as well, right? And they went and visited all kinds of people.
Yeah. So Small Island Big Song is a project started by Tim and Bao, and they're telling the story of Austronesian heritage through music. So Austronesian heritage is I think more accurately, it's a language group. So it involves like the indigenous of Taiwan, Malaysia, Madagascar, Polynesia, Hawaii, Tahiti, Easter Island, and a lot of the Polynesian islands. And many groups, not all, many of these groups, the theory is that we originated from Taiwan. And actually, we are the biggest language group in the world, but not many people know that. I didn't even know about this Austronesian connection, and like even my bandmate in Easter Island, he didn't know about it. So it's been so amazing getting to know my bandmates, and sometimes we speak our own languages and we're like, you say that too? We use the same word. And then we're always like, oh, family. And it's just, I don't know, it's like finding long lost family, really. So yeah, Tim and Baba went to each of our kampongs and they came to mine. Mine was one of their last stops, actually. So I played some songs for them. And then what their process is also is that they had a tune from an artist in Easter Island, which they brought to Madagascar. The artist in Madagascar played over that song. And then, they brought it to Indonesia. They had some drummers play over that song. And then they brought it to me and I added into that song. It's like this musical family, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, and I've been, actually a lot of my bigger tours was with that production.
And it won like the Britain Songlines Music Awards, right? Which is
that was amazing. Yeah, incredible. That was amazing.
Wow. And I would love to talk about, so this is one thing that people ask me to ask you, which is the beats, which is very important to you and it's always shown, right? Could you share with us why beats are so integral to you and your culture?
Yeah. So beads were actually brought through trade. We didn't make beads, and these beads came through trade. A lot of them originate from Italy, Czech Republic, Africa, India, China. And where do I start? So in the old days, right, there was, let me gather my thoughts.
I think they were used for like barter, and also like one lukut is the value of a person, a slave.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
So every bead has a name, and the ladies and the aunties, they know where the beads came from, they know the name of the bead, they know the value of the bead, and you'd have like these certain like dark blue beads, like one bead could be worth a buffalo, and we have our traditional beaded skull cap, topata, and some of those, the old ones can fetch for like a lot of money. They're really valuable, basically, and so they were used as money. Could be used to trade items, trade food, and the bead lukut could be traded for a human life. So, for example, if you wanted to save someone, or if you wanted to buy someone as a slave, you would use that one bead, the lukut bead. But why it's so important? I mean, it said that. So in the past, the very essence of being was to gain lalud, or to gain a spiritual height. And how a man would gain that spiritual height is to do very well in hunting, and to be very skilled in headhunting and in warfare, right? So that's feeding your family and protecting your community. Whilst the women, they would have to be very skilled in planting rice and harvesting rice, and owning beads and stringing beads. So the men and women had their very clear roles. And here, like, we can see that beads were very important from way back. But I think, like, symbolically, it showed that you were well off and you could provide and protect the community, basically, in the past. Nowadays, they are still important, but I think that's more for tradition and culture.
And I think that's something that you very consciously incorporate in your costume as well, right? When you go on stage.
Yeah, everything has a story behind it. Like my costumes, the beats that I wear. If you see a music video as well, like every part of it has a story.
I noticed like you were doing like YouTube videos explaining your different costumes, like where they come from, and some of them were made of velvet. And I was like, wow, there is a lot I didn't know as a Sarawakian.
Everything has a story.
Do you have like a favorite piece of costume that is very like special for you?
Yeah, actually, it's a string of beads. It's a string of beads from my grandmother, and I never knew my grandparents from my dad's side. They passed when he was about 12, 13 years old. So yeah, it's really special having her beads. I guess I miss her a lot, and I think a lot of the things that I inherit, like song, costumes, beads, I get from I'm very happy to receive from other aunties and grand aunties, but it's like that one thing that's just very, it's a piece of her.
That's really special.
So that's very special, and I only wear it once in a while because I don't want to lose it or break it, so I don't wear it very often.
Yeah. Wow. So since we are recording this in 2020, I wonder, how has COVID impacted you and what you're doing?
Has COVID impacted me? For a start, I haven't been traveling. So in February, my band and I went to Taiwan. We played a festival there, and then in end of Feb and March, I was in Panama for a festival. So I got my travel in.
You definitely did.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for my best friend's wedding in March, which I left the festival early to come back for, I'll probably still be stuck in Panama.
Whoa.
Yeah. So my mom's like, you have to like really thank Lillian for her wedding.
It's okay. I'm sure the Malaysian government will have sent you a plane. I was stuck in Nepal when everyone went into lockdown, and the Malaysian government sent a rescue plane.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because we were hiking up to Everest. So as we were day 3 going up,
oh gosh,
the whole world went into lockdown. We were like, what's going on?
So you had to rush down.
We couldn't even rush. Even when we rushed down, like the airports were all closed. There was no airline flying, nothing at all. So it was like, whoa, it was really
So how long were you there for?
So I was stuck in, so we did like a 9-day hike up, and we got to base camp. And then I was in Nepal. I was in Kathmandu for like 2.5 weeks. Then they sent a plane, and then we were stuck in quarantine for 2 weeks. So the whole journey was 40 days. And I was like, I've done my travel of the year. I don't need to travel anymore.
Oh, so you had to quarantine here.
I had to quarantine here. Yeah, it was okay though.
Gosh.
I was impressed though. When I arrived in KLIA, we were the only planes there. The only planes have arrived. So all the army people, the policemen, they were all out just for us.
Like, did you vlog it?
I did take videos. I haven't done it all together. I really should. But yeah, it was really incredible. And you know where there's a sign where they show all the planes arriving, departing? Every single one set in red, cancel.
Like,
wow, that's so strange.
It's weird. Honestly, it's been a very weird year. I mean, I'm very thankful that I've been fine. My family's been fine in all ways. And so when lockdown happened, I was actually looking forward to having downtime. I think I hadn't had downtime since July the year before. May the year before. So I was really looking forward to that. And I was actually already booked to work part-time on a management consulting project related to Sarawak for this year. So that set me up quite well. And to be honest, like I've had quite a few online gigs, virtual events. I had 1 or 2 like proper events with the audience. I'm actually really busy actually.
Oh, was that weird?
Was it weird? It was strange. I mean, one of those shows was at Damansara Performing Arts Center, and there had to be 2 empty seats in between each person.
Wow.
So it was sold out. But you know, when you look at the audience, it's like
really
one third full, and but honestly, like or the precious applause from a live audience. We were like, oh, that sound.
Wow. And where do you
Yeah.
think the future is going to be for you, like moving forward?
The near future.
Yeah, like what are your plans?
Oh, it's so hard to plan. So now I'm really focusing on. So now I'm really focusing on completing my album, which I actually started 2 years ago. So yeah, we're working on that. I'm really excited to share it with you guys because it's a new sound, and we have a lot of influence from blues, from rock, from new metal, from pop. So yeah, I'm really excited to share that. And I'm not sure, people say that like full-blown festivals probably won't be back until 2023.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Long time.
3 years.
Do you think that's true?
I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I think when I say full-blown festivals, like ones where you can travel overseas and I think in Malaysia we will be having some festivals. I know Borneo Jazz and Rainforest Festival are being planned for next year. Yeah, I'm going to continue creating. I think I'm going to spend more time also doing research and documenting more songs and learning. Yeah.
And is there anything that anyone listening now could help you to make your life better?
Let me get my list. To make my life better. I mean, I say that there's 3 free ways that you can help an artist, especially in these Corona times. The first one is just sharing their content on your social media, on your WhatsApp. Just share the content. Listen to their songs on Spotify, iTunes, or whatever online platform. The third one.
Buy their CDs.
No, it was 3 free ways. The free way, da-da-da, da-da-da, and this. Share this. Oh, it was just like their Instagram posts. You like their Instagram posts, but the algorithms keep changing. So now you have to save a post instead of liking it.
And comment too.
Because actually, and commenting. Actually, social media, these likes and, even the YouTube likes and stuff, they do mean a lot for us. And they do translate into funds as well. And it's a free thing for you guys to do.
Is social media something that's very, very important for you? Your career?
Yes, it is. I was going to say unfortunately yes, but no, I need to be more grateful for it actually. I do find myself on it a bit too much. Sometimes I justify it by saying it's my job, but I think I could be on it less. It is a great tool. Yeah.
Wow. And what is there anything that you believe in that you feel not many people do?
Is there anything that I believe in
that most people don't?
That no. Oh, wow. I mean, I don't know if most people don't believe in this, but I really believe in the power of intuition and feeling what is the right path for you. It's quite hard to rationalize. And I think not many people are as lucky as I am in the sense that they know what they want to do. Some people know what they want to do, but, circumstance means that they can't do it. But I think if you really kind of dig deep and shut out the noise, you can really find what is it that you want to do and what you were born to do. And honestly, like it seems scary to take the first step, to make a change, to do what you want to do in your life. But if you feel like it's the right thing, just do it. Just take it step by step and just be very aware of your journey and decisions that you have to make. They will become clear to you. Yeah, it's complete like faith. That's it. You know,
Yeah.
faith in your journey or faith in whatever it is you wanna believe in. But yeah, and I think, you know, I mean, the journey that I'm on is very beautiful, but it's very, very hard. And it's, you know, it's hard to make decisions sometimes, and it's hard to know what is the right thing to do, but you just have to kind of trust your gut and, you know, listen and see the signs and yeah, and go with it.
So there is so much that's written about you. Can you tell us one thing that no one knows?
One thing that's not written about me.
Yeah.
I do a random thing. I really, really am scared of lizards.
Really? Oh, I'm scared too.
Yeah.
I really don't like it, and there's too many of
The
them.
chit-chat. Yeah. I like, as much of like a jungle girl I am and like nature and everything. Oh, lizards. No.
It must be hard. Kuching has an especially large number of them, I feel. Not so much in KL. Kuching a lot all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
That's
Well,
me.
I understand. Well, Alena, thank you so much for your time. I normally end all of my interviews with these questions. So the first one is, have you found your why?
Yes, I have found my why.
Yeah. How will you define that why?
You put me on the spot a lot today.
I'm glad I made you think.
How do I define that why? Okay, honestly, this one's very hard to define because it's very wishy-washy.
Okay.
And I always say, you know, I make myself a vessel for my community and my heritage and my culture. And why I'm doing it is because that's what I'm meant to do. It feels right.
Love it. So second question, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
What kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? In terms of tangible things, I want to leave behind this whole like huge bucket of songs in native languages, songs and lyrics and visuals and like artwork. That's what I want to leave behind, and I want like future generations, doesn't matter what race you are, what ethnicity you are, to enjoy them and to use them as a reference.
Is there anyone in particular that you know in this world that has done it really well that you want to like follow?
Yes, there are. One of the artists that I really look up to is Fatoumata Diawara. She's a Mali singer from Mali. Calypso Rose. Oh my gosh, I shared a taxi with Calypso Rose from the festival to the airport. Where was that? Czech Republic? Yeah, in Czech Republic. She is such a queen. She's about 80 or 90.
Whoa.
And she's a queen. Yeah, she's the queen of Calypso music, and she like completely revived Calypso music. Yeah, wow, I love her.
And wow. And what do you think are the most important qualities a person should have to succeed in your field?
You need hard work. And you need to have a lot of grit. So just keep moving forward. There's going to be a lot of failures. There's going to be a lot of challenges. So having grit, and with that also staying focused, and also just to be smart. You know, educate yourself in law, in business. I think those are really important assets for an artist or a musician.
And where can people go to find you and support what you're doing?
I'm on Instagram a lot, so that's Alena Murang on Instagram. My website as well, alenamurang.com, and on Facebook, that's my name.
Incredible. And I will add all the links to that in the show notes. And is there anything else that you would like to share that we haven't talked about yet?
No, not that I can think of.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Alena, for your time.
Thank you.